This landmark agreement builds on the collaboration between the federal and provincial governments following the signing of the Alberta-Canada Energy Agreement.
This strategy is the beginning of the end of the clean electricity regulations.
Canada just pulled off something so calculated, so surgical, that I genuinely had to sit down and process it. We're talking about a country that our president decided to bully with tariffs, with threats, with economic warfare, and instead of cracking, they just answered with $1 trillion. $1 trillion. I'm not being dramatic. This is real. This just happened, and Washington has absolutely no response to it. Stay with me because what I'm about to show you is going to change how you see this entire trade war. And before we go any deeper, hit subscribe. You don't want to miss what's coming next. Let's rewind for a second, because context here is everything. When Trump rolled out his tariff war against Canada, the whole idea was pressure, maximum pressure, the kind of economic squeeze that was supposed to make Canada come crawling, renegotiate on American terms, and fall back in line. The White House math was simple. Canada needs us more than we need them, so hit them hard enough and they'll fold. That was the plan. That was supposed to be the play. Tariffs on steel, aluminum, automobiles, body blow after body blow, designed to make the Canadian economy buckle. And here's what I genuinely believed at the time. As someone who wanted America to come out of this stronger, I thought maybe this pressure would work. Maybe Canada would blink. So let me ask you the question that's been burning in my head ever since I saw what happened next. Did Canada beg? Did they fold? Did they pick up the phone and ask Trump for mercy?
Power-hungry homes and businesses are driving demand for electricity across the country. Keeping up with that appetite is a practical and economic necessity. The Prime Minister says growing the grid is critical. Mark Carney wants to double capacity, and he's launched a new initiative to get it done.
They didn't fold. They didn't beg. They built. While our side was busy drafting tariff lists and holding press conferences about leverage, Canada was quietly drawing up one of the most ambitious national energy blueprints any G7 country has announced in recent memory. And this wasn't just some press release strategy. This was Carney telling the entire world that Canada's future doesn't run through Washington anymore. But the electricity grid announcement, that was only the opening move. Because what Carney did next is the part that genuinely floored me. Here's something most Americans don't know. Alberta and Ottawa have been at each other's throats for years. Provincial energy politics versus federal climate policy. It was a genuine fault line inside Canada. Danielle Smith, Alberta's premier, was not exactly known as Carney's biggest fan. These two governments were on opposite sides of almost every major energy argument. So when I tell you that Carney walked into a room with Danielle Smith and walked out with a unified national energy agreement, you need to understand how politically seismic that actually is. Trump spent months trying to divide Canada, tried to peel off provinces, floated the idea of making Alberta the 51st state, and Carney's response was to sit down with his biggest internal critic and sign a deal that locks Canada together as one energy force. That's not politics, that's statecraft. And it gets worse for Washington, or better, depending on which side of the border you're on.
Today is a good day for Alberta, and it's a good day for Canada. It's an honor to be here with Prime Minister Mark Carney to announce a major step forward in unlocking the enormous potential of Canadian energy. And I'm happy to share with Albertans that we'll be signing an agreement today that clearly sets out a pathway to the construction of a new oil pipeline to Asian markets, commencing as early as September 1st, 2027.
Read that again. Asian markets. Not American markets. Asian. Canada just announced a pipeline that routes its oil east, straight to buyers who are lined up ready and not asking for favors. Trump's entire tariff strategy assumed Canada had no exit door, that if America turned off the economic warmth, Canada would freeze. But Carney just kicked open a door that leads directly to the largest energy-hungry economies on the planet. The leverage America thought it had? It didn't just weaken, it evaporated, and the numbers behind this pipeline are not small.
The proposed West Coast oil pipeline would transport more than 1 million barrels of oil per day. This landmark agreement builds on the collaboration between the federal and provincial governments following the signing of the Alberta-Canada Energy Agreement, which was signed in November of 2025.
1 million barrels per day, flowing west toward Asia, completely outside American influence. And on top of that pipeline, Canada just locked in a carbon pricing reform that saves its own industry approximately $250 billion in compliance costs through 2050. That's $250 billion staying inside Canadian industry, money that builds refineries, funds pipelines, hires engineers, and makes Canada a more competitive energy exporter every single year. While we've been fighting about gas stoves and culture wars, Canada just handed its entire energy sector a $250 billion runway. And I haven't even gotten to the part that truly broke my brain, because this pipeline deal was only move one of two. What Carney announced next makes this look like a warm-up, so here's where it gets genuinely uncomfortable if you're watching from the American side. The pipeline to Asia was already a gut punch, but Carney didn't stop there. He walked straight into a second announcement that reframes everything about where Canada is headed, and more painfully, where America is stuck. While our Congress spent the better part of 2 years arguing about whether clean energy is even real, Canada just decided to double its entire electricity grid, not expand it, not upgrade a few substations, double it, from coast to coast. And they put a number on it that should make every American infrastructure hawk choke on their coffee.
Electricity demand in Canada is expected to double by 2050. So we will double our grid. That's the headline. Canada will double its electricity generation over the course of the next 2 decades. Because the path to affordability is electrification. The path to competitiveness is electrification. The path to net zero is electrification. Electrification underpins everything.
3 times. He said electrification 3 times in 30 seconds, and he meant every single one. That's not a talking point. That's a governing philosophy. Back home, we can't even agree on what to call clean energy without it becoming a partisan food fight. Canada just made it a national mission with a deadline, a budget, and a structure. And that structure? It has 4 concrete pillars, not vague promises, not committee recommendations, 4 actual pillars. Let me show you what they look like.
Well, according to the government, there are 4 pillars that it's based on. The first one being that the infrastructure needs to be built. So there'll have to be major investments in generation, transmission, distribution, storage. And they estimate that that's looking like $1 trillion over the next 2 decades.
$1 trillion. Structured, planned, broken into generation, transmission, distribution, storage, not thrown at a wall and hoped for the best. And here's the part that actually surprised me about Carney, because I expected ideological rigidity. I expected the kind of green-only purity that kills projects before they start. But he didn't do that. Natural gas is still in the plan. Pragmatism won over politics. You know what we used to call that in America? Leadership. We used to do exactly this. Build big, plan long, spend where it counts. Somewhere along the way, we traded that instinct for Twitter arguments. And Carney just reminded the whole world what the original model looked like.
We're focused on practical steps that are going to get results. It doesn't do us good to be sitting in court all the time with provinces. It doesn't do us good to be talking past each other. What it does do us good is to come together, specific projects.
Come together on specific projects. Read that one more time slowly. That sentence is doing so much heavy lifting, it deserves its own press conference. Because that is exactly what American governance forgot how to do. We don't come together on projects anymore. We come together on grievances. We unite around enemies, not goals. And while we've been perfecting that particular skill, Canada has been quietly assembling something that should alarm every working American who ever believed infrastructure was an American thing. 50,000 jobs. That's what this package creates, in Alberta and across Canada. 50,000 skilled trades jobs, engineering careers, pipeline construction gigs, carbon capture technicians. Those aren't abstract numbers on a policy sheet. Those are mortgages getting paid. Those are kids going to college. And I keep asking myself, why isn't that happening here?
The largest global initiative for carbon capture and storage. And the proposed pipeline depends on that alliance, which will achieve emissions reductions equivalent to taking 90% of the vehicles off Alberta roads while generating over $16 billion in GDP as part of this overall package, which can create up to 50,000 jobs in Alberta and across Canada.
16 billion in GDP, 90% of vehicles worth of emissions removed, 50,000 jobs, all from one package. And what did Trump's trade war produce for American workers in the same window? Higher prices at the grocery store, strained relationships with the one neighbor we share a border with, and a Canada that stopped looking west and started looking east. We didn't pressure Canada into submission. We pressure washed our own leverage right off the map. And the saddest part? Canada didn't even have to fight dirty to win this.
Today's implementation agreement is comprehensive and it's interconnected. It covers, amongst other things, regulation, markets, methane, renewables, and carbon capture. It includes, as you just heard, Alberta's commitment to submit a comprehensive proposal for a bitumen pipeline to Asian markets to the Federal Major Projects Office by Canada Day, by July 1st this year, and Canada's commitment to pursue the designation of that proposal as a project of national interest under the Building Canada Act by the 1st of October.
Regulation, markets, methane, renewables, carbon capture, Indigenous partnership, Asian pipeline, doubled electricity grid. All of it moving, all of it funded, structured and dated. That is not a country on the ropes. That is a country that heard the bell, stepped into the ring, and landed every single punch while we were still arguing about the referee. Carney didn't just survive Trump's energy war, he answered it with a $1 trillion counterattack that repositions Canada as a global energy superpower that Asia trusts, that its own provinces now back, and that the international investment community is watching with serious eyes. Our president started a fight with the most stable, most cooperative neighbor this country has ever had, and that neighbor just won. I'm not saying that to be cruel, I'm saying it because someone has to. You cannot lead the free world when you're playing checkers and the other guy is 3 moves deep into a chess match you didn't even realize had started. So let's land the plane. 2 moves, that's all it took. A West Coast pipeline sending 1 million barrels a day straight to Asia, and a $1 trillion grid doubling plan that turns Canada into an energy giant for the next 50 years. 2 moves, clean, calculated, executed without chaos, without drama, without a single all-caps post at midnight. I want America to win. I genuinely do. But winning requires the kind of leadership that builds things instead of burning bridges. So here's the question I'm leaving you with today. If Canada can pull this off while being on the receiving end of an economic war, what exactly is our excuse? Drop your answer in the comments. And if this kind of analysis is what you've been looking for, the stuff that actually connects the dots, subscribe, because we're just getting started.